For a while now, I've been trying to, warp my approach towards fitness in a more scientific and systematic manner in order to reconcile like a cause and effect, right? I really hate the idea of aimlessly pushing around with pure effort and hoping for the best in terms of results, right? And I feel like, especially with like calisthenics, I've been doing that quite often. And a lot of that comes down to, well, calisthenics really isn't all that popular in terms of the isometric holds. And comparing that to weight training, right, which is a lot more popular and has a lot more research to back up, I guess that's what makes that form of a scientific approach a lot more difficult and a harder exploration, right? Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because today was the first day going back into the smaller program, right? Now, it's been about 3 weeks since I've even put the barbell on my back, right? Because I was experiencing a bit of low back pain while I was finishing off the smaller program, right? Now, lower back pain is a pretty, a rather dangerous risk because you're compromising the lumbar spine, which is one of the main weight bearers of the spine, right? So the fact that the bottom portion of your spine, that is quite literally the function of bearing the weight and load, or just like, let's say, explosive downwards movement, right? And if you have pain in that particular area, which is meant to be the least vulnerable area, right? Now that's where problems occur because I don't want to risk getting a herniated disc or like being crippled from just a simple squat training where I just went excessive with my training, or I was being impatient and I didn't recover properly, right? Now it's just like those are one of like the dumbest youth problems and decisions, right? That can quite literally dictate how your rest of your training life and even the way you approach your lifestyle, right? So yeah, I wanted to make sure like completely that I had no strain in my lower back, no like weird or discomfort feelings, right? Before I got back into squatting, right? Now, I'm attempting to do the small of again. It's a ridiculous demand in terms of squat frequency, volume and intensity, right? It's able to manage all of that in a very well chronological and structured manner, right? Which kind of, makes the smaller program so alluring because it's able to bust plateaus quite easily. And it's not in a manner of like a very complex, like relationship with rep schemes and stuff. It's very linear in its progression, right? It goes from like 70, 80%, 90% throughout the weeks, and you just add weight every single week, right? But like that was where problems occurred. I was putting on weight too fast. I was getting confident, and yes, I could have handled the weight, right? I could handle 10 kilo increases every single week, but my lower body, like my more compromised areas of my body, could not handle those weights, right? I was going up weights way too fast. Like 120 kilos was my 1 rep max, and after 4 weeks, I was meant to do 10 sets of 3 of my 1 rep max, right? And that's ridiculous, right? The fact that I was even able to manage like 5 sets of 3, right, with 120, that's like one of the biggest reasons why the smaller program is so successful, or like the law of it's just ridiculous in its fitness industry, right? And I was kind of contemplating, right, or like I was a bit uncertain about its effectiveness, right? Or like more so its longevity in your squat strength, right? Because yes, the Smolov was programmed to become a peaked strength program, right? It's meant for you to maximize your strength in a particular time frame, right? It's not like those programs where you, where you're provided a long-term journey towards increasing weight progressively, including increase in like your body mass in order to compensate for that strength increase, right? Your body isn't demanding, or it's not pushed to the limit for like 4 times of squatting per week, right? I guess the fact that you're having consistent exposure to the squat at very heavy loads, about 90% of your 1 rep max, that is what allows you to get comfortable with the heavy weights, right? To me, I don't feel like there is a ridiculous muscular benefit, or like, sorry, a muscular increase from the smaller program, right? Yeah, I mean, yeah, sure, in 13 weeks' time, you will gain like a bit of mass if you're in a caloric surplus, right? But in a 4 to 6 week increase, or like 46-week interval, right? You're not going to expect to gain like 3 kilos, like 5 kilos plus, right? So where's all that strength coming from? That people supposedly, squat 20 kilos above their 1 rep max in 6 weeks, right? Well, I think that's because you've already had that physical exposure, and I guess you have the physical demand, or I guess you haven't reached that threshold where you've capped out your physical strength, right? You haven't used all that strength because your mind is limiting you from being able to, hit your max strength, right? And the fact that you are handling heavy weights, or like close to 1 rep max weights at a consistent basis, right? Then you are able to, I guess, neurologically make sense of that heavy weight. Because lifting, right, although simplistic in its operations, right, it's very, very simplistic, right? You're just contracting muscles and you're doing a one-way movement, right? Lifting, especially the squat movement or the big three movements, right, it's a skill. I guess it requires a strong mental foundation, which allows you to have a strong understanding of that one particular movement, right? Now, the reason why we don't necessarily look at lifting in terms of a skill revolving sport, right, is because compare that to, I guess, like soccer, basketball, like hockey and all those team playing sports, right, that require like multitudes and dynamics in movements, right? And you compare that to like the very individualistic nature of weightlifting, right? Well, there's a large disparity, right? It's very limited in its range of what it does, but I believe that the fact that you are, I guess, perfecting one particular movement, right? You're trying to specialize in that one movement. Therefore, because there's such little demand for that particular skill, right? You need to put everything you got into that mental capacity, like that neuromuscular connection with your muscles, in order to perfect that one movement, right? Just because you know how to do a movement doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be good at it, right? Like with sprinting, right? You're always improving your technique, right? You're just doing one movement, you're just sprinting, right? But how do people increase their speed? Through technique, strength, and muscle mass, right? And I think that's exactly the same with lifting, right? So I guess in that sense, for you to increase weight ridiculously fast in 6 weeks, you're actually honing your mental skills of that movement, and thus your body is getting more adapt to, I guess, finding the most effective and efficient pathway to make that squat movement the easiest for you, right? So as you increase the weight, your body has already acknowledged and understood the skill requirement and the mental capacity of it, right? So therefore, you're able to perform that one movement, that one squat movement, the most effectively, and thus, add more weight and stuff. So yeah, that's basically my take of the smaller program, simply because of its large frequency, right? And yeah, that's my experience, and I'll finish it off here.